for the 5th segment in the series called That Dude Called Dad. And just to kind of catch you up, in case you are a person who is just joining me for this series, if you just tuning in to my channel on Fatch TV, we kind of give you some tidbits of what's been happening in the what I was talking about in the previous 4 segments of That Dude Called Dad. So first of all, here's the overarching background. In my travels, in public sectors, private sectors, social settings, I am always the recipient of tons of information that speak to the fact that the African American presence as it relates to fatherhood is extremely weak. I've been hearing that for a number of years, and it frankly sickens me. And I'm completely sick and tired of hearing that. And while I realize that there may be a great deal of truth in that statement or statements like that for many people, it was not the case for me. So this series, this documentary that I'm doing, That Dude Called Dad, is a reflection of the experiences that I've had with my father growing up. And as a 45-year-old man, I had a great relationship with my dad. Unfortunately, my father passed when I was 19 years old, and what I always like to say is I feel like he's given me hundreds of years worth of wisdom in just that short segment of time. And so this is a series that I am doing to promote the positive influences that African American men have had on their children, and to draw from my experiences with my father. So that's where this has come from. That's what this is all about. And I appreciate you joining me today. So, and do me a favor, please make sure that you have watched the channel, because there's about 6 hours worth of programming on the channel, my channel, which is the Encouragement is Key channel. Fatch TV is the overarching platform for this, but my channel is the Encouragement is Key channel. So make sure you've watched that long enough, because again, there are about 6 hours worth of programming, and the programming is in a continuous loop. So after the 6 hours, it loops back around, and it plays continuously 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So check it out. Hang in there long enough to watch the previous 4 segments, and everything that I just mentioned to you excuse me, will make a great deal of sense. And I just think it's really good information. I've had tons of positive feedback already where people have watched it from different cultures, within the African American community, outside of the African American community. People are really appreciative of what's being shared, but more importantly, they're appreciative of the spirit behind excuse me, what's all being shared and talked about. So we hope to continue this, and I'm not sure how much longer, so take it segment at a time. And I'm choosing topics that I feel like are really important for fathers and just for people in general, again, all across the board, gender-wise as well as culturally, okay? So that's just a quick background. Now, so today I want to talk about something that's near and dear to my heart as a father, and I'm sure all of the fathers out there watching this will feel the same way, and that's as it relates to fathering children through financial challenges, right? I mean, I don't even know how to appropriately title this, to be honest with you. So and I'm not even going to worry about trying to construct an official title, because this whole thing is just kind of being shared in a very laid back kind of a format. So this just has to do with, what happens, what do you do, how do you handle, how do you respond to those financial challenges that come up, and how do you relate to your children through those? And I want to talk about a couple of different scenarios. So every man that I've known who's a dad I've talked with him about fathering a child or children, and loving your children and helping them to understand that there's a limited budget that you're working from. No, you can't get everything in the world that you want to on your Christmas list. No, you can't go to the schools that you may want to go to. No, you can't have all of the items from the different stores in the mall that you want to buy. No, you can't have that certain model car when you turn 16. I mean, there are these, life has limits. And while I say this very nonchalantly, this is something near and dear to my heart because it pains me as a father to have to share with my children what those limits are. And there have been different points in my life and different points in time where I felt like I was having to share those limits very frequently, much more often than I would have cared to. But it was as a result of what my budget looked like, and it was what it was. And it's difficult because children don't understand that, and it doesn't matter how young or old they are. What they sometimes see is dad not wanting to do something or dad not being able to do something, and as a man, sometimes it hurts. Sometimes that's a very painful thing to think that your child feels like you're withholding something from them that is a good thing, something that they may have worked hard for and earned. I know what's happened with me is, children have worked hard in school and on projects and in their own personal pursuits of things, maybe outside of school, and they really get a good mark, do something incredible, complete something for which I and the rest of the family are really excited about. And they may say, well, Dad, here's one that's come up frequently for me, can I go somewhere with my friends? And I know for a couple of my kids that those somewheres have been, out-of-town trips. I've got older children now, and, for them, it can be the request. The requests are no larger or no worse, no greater, no better, among the children or than any of us had as children. It's just that sometimes your budget just can't meet those needs, i.e., you can't afford it. And it's tough. It is extremely tough to look your children in the face and say, no, baby, I'm sorry. There's not enough money to do that. You can't go there. That's not an option. I'm sorry. And that's challenging. It's difficult. It's gut-wrenching. So I just want to take a minute to encourage any man who will see this video, who's ever been in that place. And I want to tell you that my friend, my brother, that I get it and I understand. And I want you to be encouraged because what I'm realizing, again, I have an 8-year-old as my youngest, and my oldest daughter is 29, and I got some, ages, of course, there in between. What I have been able to do is to really, what I've chosen to do is the better way to say it. What I've actually chosen to do is to just always make sure I'm as honest and as upfront as I possibly can be. And, try to be a resource to explore other options. That's the long and short of it. I think it's detrimental to say to a child no, but you don't work with them to try to find other options, or you don't encourage them to pursue other options. I think there's still a role that we have to play in the process in providing the emotional support to our children through these instances. And I'll tell you, as I think about my relationship with my dad, one of the things that used to always come up, and again, I have to say this is a series for any and everybody, but it's a series centered around men, centered around fatherhood, okay? That's important to know. But I say that, and then right on the flip side of that coin, many of the experiences I had with my dad that I'm including in this documentary, I have to give and the hair is standing up on the back of my neck to even be able to say this, but I have to give tremendous amounts of credit to my mother, because my mother was an incredible influence in our home. Just an incredibly strong, sound, wise woman. Incredibly loving, incredibly compassionate. And she and my dad together really painted a good picture for me of adulthood. And I remember my mother would say to me when I was a kid growing up around Christmas time, she would always say to me, now son, your father and I don't have a lot of money. So what I want you to do for Christmas is I want you to make a list of maybe 2 items, and you're gonna mention those to your father. Don't give your father a list of 10 to 15 items. And here's what she would say when she would give me the rationale. She would say, because if you do, that's going to worry him. It's going to bother him, because he will want to get you everything and he can't. And so I would watch my dad, having that cue and that prompting from my mother. I would watch my dad, through some of those, because before I had those lessons, those lessons came about because I had presented a lengthy list to my dad at different points in time. And my mother, realizing the toll it took on my dad, realized that the best thing to do would be to have me scale that down, because as a man, she understood as a man that my dad was going to do whatever he could to make good on that list. And the way we're wired as men, and I think everybody needs to hear this. Men need to hear what I'm about to say. Women need to hear it to understand how you can support your men, your husbands, your boyfriends, and even your sons as they grow up. Men are incredibly duty bound. We really are. And for those of us who have a mindset to want to work within the family structure, and on behalf of the women in our lives and our children, we will all but kill ourselves to try to buy whatever the children put on these lists. Because to come up short is to realize that a child will be disappointed for Christmas, for example. To come up short, we failed. It's like dropping the football at the 1 yard line while you've made that 50-yard dash to the end zone. It's like, fumbling the fly ball if you're a baseball player, out in the field. Like, that's never a position that a father wants to be in, and it'll bother us. It really will. So, women, you really need to have heard that piece, because I want to encourage you, women, to understand what I'm sharing and the role that my mother played. And then I want to encourage you men to understand that there is a limit. There has to be a limit. I don't care if you are wealthy beyond belief. Inevitably, your child will have a need that will press and potentially tax your budget. And, of course, the more money you make, that need may be, or that want or request or desire could be significantly larger in scale, in price, and so forth. But I think we will all get there with children who will have requests, want, in this example, Christmas list and numbers of items that we look at and go, you know what, ain't no way in the world that I can get that. But we won't admit that to anybody, and sometimes we won't even say it to the women in our lives, our significant other. And we'll just try to figure out a way. But what's really playing in our heads is the fact that I cannot let this child down on Christmas or birthday or whatever the situation or the occasion is. So I would watch my dad, as he would kind of go through the emotions that I put him through in the request for different things. And eventually I really learned the principle of making sure that my requests were within scope. Now, somebody listening to this might think, well, that's not fair to the child. Somebody else listening to this might go, thank you, Lord, that somebody is feeling my pain and understanding what I go through as a man, as a father. And I realize that there are two sides to the coin. There are two perspectives that can be held here, and both very justifiably. So there's a message and a lesson to everybody, you know. But again, as a series centered around fatherhood, I have to say to the men, to any man who desires to be a father, and for every man who currently is one, again, I keep saying it over and over because it will never ever be a sour phrase. You know, it'll never not have punch, and that's the phrase, be encouraged. That statement just means so much to me, and I hope it means a great deal to you too. Man, father, be encouraged, and do what you can. My dad would, I don't think he ever could fix his lips to say, no, son, we can't do that. That just was not in him. I, on the other hand, have become a father that has become very comfortable with saying that to my children. Baby, I'm sorry, we can't do that. We can't do that now. We can't do that anytime soon. Certain things I've had to say, we can't do that at all. Or certain times I've had to say, no, we can't do A, but B could be possible. You know, those kind of conversations. Just recently, I had a situation where I promised my younger daughter that we were going to go somewhere and that I was going to let her shop. And then as I looked at the budget, I realized that that experience was going to be significantly more than what I had in my account. I'm just speaking quite frankly. I hope you don't mind. And so I was troubled all day as I came to that realization. Very early in the morning, I checked my account and I saw X dollars in the account. Realizing that, actually it was the night before, to be quite honest. The night before I checked the balance and realized that that promise that I made for the next day was just, it was not going to be possible. And my daughter and I'd made her this promise several days before the actual outing. So all that next day, because the promise was for us to go shopping like around 4 p.m., something like that in the afternoon. So all that particular day, I was worried sick. I mean, I had knots in my stomach. I had, I literally, it was starting to manifest in my body that this was bothering me. You know, I started to get headaches. It just was not good because I did not want to disappoint my daughter. And it's important for us as men, when we make promises, that we keep those promises. So this thing bothered me on a number of different levels. And so I remember thinking, there was one period of time where I had crystal clarity. And I remember thinking to myself, you know, the best thing I could do is just be honest and just say, this is what we can and this is what we can't do. Have my daughter to understand that, and then maybe we can do something else. So, by the grace of God, as I was preparing to have this conversation, my daughter and I had crossed in the hallway, and on the second floor, we were coming out of different bedrooms, and I, kind of bumped into her, and I said, "Princess, look, Daddy's got to talk to you." And I said, what I promised you that we would do today, we can't. I said, because I just don't have the money anymore to be able to do this. Now, the parenthetical insert is the fact that my youngest daughter, since she was about 2, I mean, literally since she was able to walk, and be able to go and play outside, so to speak, she has loved to go to 7-Eleven. Don't ask me why. She, like, going to 7-Eleven for this child is like a woman having a $1,000, $10,000 shopping spree at Macy's or something. Like, this child loves herself some 7-Eleven. And I think it's just the fact that there's that much of a variety that is within arm's reach. I mean, I don't know what it is specifically, but she loves 7-Eleven. And thank God she does, because here's why. So going back to my conversation, I said, baby, we can't go where we were going to go to a mall and go shopping. I said, however, we can go down to 7-Eleven, and I'll let you pick out whatever it is you want. And her face, when I said, you can't do A, her face went like this. And I remember she had something in her hands, and she kind of put that up to her face, and she went, and And you could see like she was about to burst into tears. And I said, but we can do B. And she went, like, like I had said, there's $1 million out in the yard that you can go jump in and roll around. Like, it was almost like that. And she lit up. And I want to tell you how incredibly comforting, how comforted I was to see her face light up like that. Like it was almost something that caused me to burst into tears. Because again, for me, and I'm sure for most of you fathers out there, the last thing on planet Earth we want to do, talking about those of us who really are engaged with our families and our children, the last thing any father wants to do is break a promise and to not be able to have some kind of experience had because of a limited budget. Whether it's a sudden change in that budget or just the fact that, you're struggling quite often to make ends meet. So trips to the store and, shopping sprees and all that, if those things aren't possible at any point in time, you understand what I'm talking about, and how this could be limited for children. Because, again, children have needs, sometimes reasonable, sometimes not so reasonable. But to see her face light up the way it did, like literally, was just magic for me. And it made me feel so good as a parent, because she was able to have an experience. It may not have been the one that was spoken of or the one that she thought. And it's interesting because as we skip on down to 7-Eleven, which is not very far from the house, it's a nice little, 6-block walk one way, and we just have a lot of fun. We're talking, we're holding hands, we're skipping, we're playing, we're doing a bunch of different things, and it's healthy because it's a walk for us, but it's some awesome daddy-daughter time, And the fact that in that exchange we laughed, we joked, and I'll never forget, on the way to 7-Eleven, my baby said, "Dad, I'm going to get this," and "Dad, I'm going to get this," and I'm calculating in my head like, okay, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, we can do that. That's doable. And it's so funny because by the time we got down there, she only picked out 3 things. I didn't say anything to her regarding what she could and couldn't get and the limits or anything. I just knew that based on what my daughter typically likes, whatever she got from this scenario in B was going to be affordable versus the A experience, hands down. So her excitement down there and her excitement picking the things out and then her excitement paying for them or me paying for them. And then the walk back where she's totally thrilled. And I'll never forget when we got back, came back to the house, we were in the basement and she was sitting on an ottoman. We have a really wide ottoman, and she was sitting on that, and she had all the things that she bought around her, and she was taking one thing out of the bag, and she took a drink of something she bought, and she took another thing out of the bag, and then she kind of mixed them up, and she bought herself a sandwich. She loves 7-Eleven. This child loves 7-Eleven, and so she was sitting there, and the look on her face made me like the happiest dad on planet Earth. To know that she was excited, she was thrilled, and her dad delivered something is important. So men, I just want to encourage you. Be encouraged. Explore the options with your children. Encourage them to explore options when it comes to some of the larger things. But don't be afraid to have the conversation, to say to your child very frankly, son, daughter, no, we're not able to do that. No, that's not possible. I say that because I want you to know from a man to you as man, that does not make you any less of a man. As a matter of fact, I think it's the healthier approach because you set expectations right up front. Sometimes in the best laid plans, there have to be changes. There have to be course, corrections. Sometimes you got to get out of the car, meaning that figuratively speaking, as it relates to some of the things we want to do with and for our children. Sometimes you just have to pull the car over momentarily on the side of the road. I mean, a number of things happen. But I want to encourage you to be strong enough and to be man enough and to not feel that you having to say no and you having to kind of change the plan and rein that vision back in a bit and talk to your children through that. Don't be afraid to have that conversation, because it does not mar your manhood at all. It does not lessen your parenting ability, and it does not destroy your quality as a father. Those are very healthy things. And when we do those things consistently, when we do those things in the healthiest ways possible, here's what we're doing. We're helping our children to understand how to communicate, so when they grow and have their children, they can do and say the same thing. Because again, I don't care how much money you have or what you don't have, children will ask of us on whatever levels that potentially may tax our budgets. Let's set the groundwork now in the conversations that we're having with our children, so that they know that we help them to understand what the appropriate things are to say and what the appropriate responses should be, so that they in turn can pass those same lessons on in their exchanges with their children and with their children, with their children, and so forth and so on. So I hope this is very helpful for you. Women, wives, girlfriends, significant others, you can play a humongous role in this process by helping your children to understand. And I'm saying this, because I know nowadays in society the man and the woman are working. So I think it's just important that one parent help the other in these kind of scenarios. And the dads can help the children as it relates to mom as well. So I think setting the expectations is critical, and then trying to make sure that we do all that we can to execute according to what's practical and what's reasonable. This is James W. Falcon with this 5th segment of That Dude Called Dad, as we talk through what it means to father a child through financial challenges and struggles. Please do me a favor and shoot me an email if this segment or any of the other segments or any material at all that you see and view on this channel, my channel, the Encouragement is Key channel, if you felt like this was helpful, or if you want to see something else, hear something else, you have ideas about different segments, whether for this particular show, That Dude Called Dad, or anything that you see and view on the Encouragement is Key channel, shoot me an email. And you can email me at encouragement-is-key2013. That's encouragement-is-key 2013 at gmail.com. Do that, and I will guarantee you a response in a very, very quick time frame, because this is what I call viewer-suggested programming. And that means we want to deliver topics on this channel that are concerns, that are real concerns for our viewers. We don't want to just shoot an arrow in the dark and hope we hit something. What we want to do is have the room well lit, illuminated as brightly as we possibly can, and draw from your experiences, personally, individually. So if you feel like, as it relates to the topic of fatherhood, that there is a topic that should be covered, please shoot me an email, okay? Or anything else on the Encouragement is Key channel. Hey, James, I don't see this. Or, hey, I'd like to see a little bit more of this. Or, I'd like to have you expand on this. Or maybe next time not do. Any of those things, I will be open to hearing from you. James W. Falcon with That Dude Called Dad, segment number 5. Look forward to additional segments coming up in the next couple of weeks. Thank you so much for your time today, and enjoy your day. And whatever you do, remember to get, be, and stay encouraged. Take care.